Hi and welcome to the We Need a Rose podcast. And David, since you're new here, I'm going to cut you a break today. So why don't you make a tree and get out of here?
Oh, Neil. It's
Come
too
on,
early.
it's Back to the Future reference.
Yeah, I know, but like a tree joke to start off with.
I was like, it was 50-50 whether you was even going to remember that we did Back to the Future quote at the start of the show.
It's been a while.
It's been so long since our last episode. Anyway, David, how was rehab?
It's not been going well, Neil. You've made me start this early, so you've stopped me from being able to drink. I could have just kept it going. I went to a wedding last night, which my voice is a bit hoarse.
I mean, starting this early purely was a ploy to make sure that you weren't drunk like last time when we did the podcast.
If anything, it's going to be the complete opposite, man. It's going to, instead of I had a nice buzz going, I was swearing a lot, I apologise.
Yeah, we actually had complaints, man. We literally had people say that is the worst episode of the podcast we've ever done.
Oh dear. I only have myself to blame.
It's okay. David, admitting you have a problem is the first step of the problem, and I think you're probably on about step 8 of the 12 steps right now. But we're not here to discuss David's alcoholism. We're here to discuss TV shows and movies. And on today's show, in news, we're going to be talking some trailers. And Apple TV have dropped their first look at Season 3 of their alternate space drama For All Mankind. Prime Video has a more detailed look at the massively anticipated Season 3 of The Boys, and Disney Plus has dropped the first look at their new serious legal drama, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I joke, as does the She-Hulk trailer many, many times. In our TV section, we're going to be talking Prime Video's 10%, which is the English language remake of the Netflix hit French show Call My Agent, Mike Myers' new comedy, The Pentavarate, on Netflix, and Tokyo Vice on Starzplay from Michael Mann, starring Ansel Elgort. So, first up, trailers. Yes, on Friday, June the 10th, we get the first of 10 new episodes of Season 3 of Apple TV Plus's alternate space drama For All Mankind, starring Rick Flag himself, Joel Kinnaman. Now, this show was created by Ronald D. Moore of Deep Space Nine fame and Battlestar Galactica, and the series originally started as a what if the Russians had landed a man on the moon first, and then spun its alternate history show out from there, following our main characters over the corresponding years. At the end of Season 1, we took a time jump to 1983 for Season 2, and at Season 2, they continued the new Cold War with Russia and America on the moon, and we jumped ahead at the end of Season 2 to 1995, where, David, we see someone step foot on Mars for the very first time. Ooh. Now, the thing with For All Mankind is, it's a definite kind of slow burn of a show. It generally sags in the middle each season, and it saddles. You get some really piss-poor characters that have really bad B-plot storylines, and all you really want is to get back to the action on the moon. But no, we have to go back and have family trauma stories on Earth, which we don't care about. We want moon action. You know, the more moon, the better, except in, Moonfall's case. But this slow burn approach does work really well, because in the last few episodes of each season, they have been tremendous TV, and it just reminds you how good Ronald D. Moore can be. So, with this new trailer, because they keep jumping forward about a decade every season, everyone looks old, and you can tell he looks, the main character, Joel Kinnaman's Ed Baldwin, you can tell he looks old now, because he's got a bit of grey in his hair. That's how we know he's older now.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's the character progression, is it? He's just getting, yeah.
And it's funny, because you see his wife's character, called Karen, and, dude, she is the worst Karen of all. She gives other Karens a bad name. It's almost like when they created this character called Karen, it's like, what's that name everyone hates? Oh, it's Karen. Yeah, we're going to call her Karen.
It's Karen
the worst
from Finance.
Wife. She's actually Butcher's wife from The Boys. Do you remember how annoying she was as well? Becca in The Boys.
She wasn't so bad. If we're talking worst wives in TV, it's got to go down to Breaking Bad, I think.
Skylar was not well liked, was she?
I did not like Skylar. Although the second viewing, I much preferred her. But where I binged it all, but going episode by episode, week by week, she really ground on me.
And I think as well, once you catch up with Ozark, you'll be like, oh, Wendy Bird might be in the running as well, because she's an absolute monster as that show progresses. And we are going to be doing an Ozark spoiler special coming up soon. What we see in the rest of this trailer is you get a bastardized version of Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun that I really didn't like. You don't mess around with classic songs like that, man. So it seems like they're having a crack at Elon Musk in this new series, as there's a private, rich individual getting involved in a space race, and it seems that the crux of the series is going to be a three-way space race to be the first to Mars between the Russians, NASA, and this private company called Helios, which is owned by a new character, Dev Ayesa, played by Eddie Gafigas. you do get loads of like really massive spacecraft shots and space stations and Mars vehicles. And of course, the one thing this show thrives on, David, is a landing going wrong. Do you think they'd be better at landing crafts now after like 20, 30 years in the thing of the show? But they don't. There's always issues landing or taking off or crashing the craft somewhere. And you always have to keep cutting back to everyone behind the big desk at Mission Control and NASA going, God damn it, we need to get them down. Also, there's a character in it who in season 2 got so much radiation that she should have been dead then, let alone survive another decade into season 3. And character progression again. She's got a walking stick now and might be blind. It's hard to tell from the trailer. Also, if you're follow the show, it looks like Jodie Balfour's Evan Waverly has left NASA and she is now running for Senate in 1986, which I guess means season 3 ends in 1995 but doesn't actually start there. Have you actually watched the show before, David?
No, mate, I haven't. To be honest, the whole premise of it, I'm struggling to see how just the Russians winning the space race would have made that big of a difference.
Well, I mean, that was their jumping off point for the series, right?
And now weren't the Russians first into space, right?
Yeah.
So they technically already won the space race because they were the first ones up there. So I don't know why, like from a Western point of view, being the first person to land on the moon was what we see as the big thing. Perhaps if you're in Russia and you're living in Russia, they think that they've won the space race because they were the first ones in space. Maybe it's like a where you were born kind of thing.
I think if you're living in Russia at the minute, well, let's just not even go there.
Not the best, yeah.
Well, and actually that kind of ties in. It's very interesting to see how far they're going to use the Russians as the villains of this show because they massively established that in season 2. So I wonder if current world events had any impact on the direction in season 3 because everything's happened quite recently, isn't it? So I'm wondering whether do they pull back on featuring the Russians a bit more, or does it make them even more gung-ho in making them the villains? This show, when it's good, it's very, very good. But every season, the sort of quality is all over the place. It starts well, ends well, and just sags in the middle like a really bad cake. And as I said, the dreary family bullshit storylines is just, they kind of get in the way. You're just like, get me back to the moon, damn it. I want to see the guy who's clearly going crazy and he's going to do something mental. I want to see him. I don't want to see this guy's wife. In fact, okay, so remember I was saying about Karen being the worst Karen in the history of Karens. She is so Karen that her husband Ed would rather spend the rest of his time on the moon than back home with her. Like there's literally a bit where he could have retired. He's like, no, I'm going to go to Mars now. It's like, oh, you don't love me, and then she goes and shags her like a guy who works in their bar. And it's
whatever
like,
it takes to get a marriage working.
Oh yeah, well, it's just. So anyway, yeah. For All Mankind, where would if you was on a watch list, David? Where would you put it? Was this kind of you would watch it if?
I'm not going to lie to you, Neil. It wasn't even anywhere near it. There's so much, and it's only getting more and more the longer we do this show. And I'm about 2 months behind everything. I've only just started watching the American Horror Stories, like 1970 or 84 or whatever it was, from like 5 years ago.
The camp one.
Yeah.
It's okay. I can't remember. The last series was much better, actually. Double feature. So yeah, that was very good. So yeah, For All Mankind drops weekly on Apple TV from Friday, June the 10th. Next up, I think we're going to be talking about one of our most anticipated shows of the year, and it's been a long time since we've had this show because it wasn't on last year. That's it, because a new trailer has dropped for Prime Video's The Boys Season 3. So next up, I think one of our most anticipated shows of the year has had a new trailer drop, and I think final trailer drop now, and that is for Prime Video's The Boys Season 3. So, at the end of Season 2, the season's main villain, Nazi Stormfront, had been stopped by Ryan, Homelander's illegitimate son, with his laser vision. He basically Darth Vader'd her, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm glad you told me that, because it's like you said, it's been so long since Season 2 happened, I can't even really remember a lot of the plot points. Didn't his wife, Billy Butcher's wife, died, right? At the end of that as well.
She got killed by accident. And that is Karen. So that was Karen from...
And we've got Billy's taken Homelander's son at the end of it, so that he's like surrogate father to him now.
No.
Surrogate father? No. Is that what? Is that the right kind of father?
No.
Surrogate?
No. It's not even that. Ryan's taken away by the CIA.
Does he? Okay.
But Butcher does forgive him. And then Maeve, she blackmails Homelander to not harm them by having the plane footage from Season 1 when he's like, haha, see you later, guys. And everyone died on that plane crash.
Yeah.
So it kind of, in a way, they win. With Stormfront's Nazi past being exposed, this halts Mr. Edgar's plan to kind of take over. And the boys are cleared of all their outstanding charges. So Annie is put back in the 7, as is A-Train. but not the Deep, because everyone's like, no, fuck that guy. The Deep cannot catch a break, man. He's still like, no, out in the wilderness.
Well, he was a dirty old Deep. He was in the first season, so everything he's getting is just fully warranted.
So, at the end of season 2, it kind of looked like the boys have won, and they go their own separate ways. And Huey takes a job with Congresswoman Victoria Newman, who in the season-ending twist is revealed to be the soup who has been making people's heads explode.
Was it? I don't remember this.
Yeah, she was, man.
Wait, who? Yeah. The Congresswoman?
The Congresswoman, who was like a minor character. She was the soup who would be making people's heads explode. It's like one of the very last scenes of season 2, yeah.
I wondered why in the trailer it said Billy's taking orders from Huey, and I was like, what the fuck's Huey doing? I can't remember any of this happening. All I remember is cool blood, like laser beams and blood explosions from season 2, and it being enjoyable because it always is.
And that's why I'm here to remind you and everyone else, David.
Thank you. You're doing the Lord's work.
Praise Neil. Yeah, praise Neil. The new trailer starts with Homelander doing a TV interview to essentially excuse his relationship with Stormfront, and tells us all with his crazy eyes, and there's a lot of Homelander crazy eyes in it, we can't wait for us to all meet the real Homelander. We then hear something's definitely wrong with Homelander before we see him generally looking crazy and milking a cow.
Yeah, it goes from something like that, where it's like all different shots of him being like, yeah, I just fell for the wrong woman, blah, 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 to him just like casually, what's he doing with that cow? There's something so gross about that man.
Yeah, it's just well, it all goes back to season 1 with Elizabeth Shue's character and the milk.
Yeah.
It's just creepy and weird. So we learn that Butcher has been behaving himself, as much as possible for Butcher. And I suppose by that means he's not been drinking and killing soups, but he's definitely been, it looks like he's been working for the CIA on other Black Ops stuff. And it's funny because, like you mentioned, we see a bit where Huey, now working for the Congresswoman, is actually giving orders to Butcher because he's working for the Federal Bureau of Superhuman Affairs. So that's quite nice. There's a nice little power dynamic twist there. We see more machinations from Mr. Edgar. And you know what? If there's not a better bad guy working today than Giancarlo Esposito. I mean, he was Mr. Chicken Man from Breaking Bad. And he's the baddie from The Mandalorian. He
does dead face. His resting face is just so menacing.
His resting menace face.
He does. He's got that down. Resting menace face.
We then get introduced to Jensen Ackles' Soldier Boy, aka the boys' Captain America ripoff.
I fucking really hope they don't automatically just kill him off. I really hope he's like the badass character that they're playing him out to be, and they don't do like what they did with, I don't know, like the Daredevil character in season 1 or whatever it was, where they just immediately, where Homelander immediately just bashes his ears in, and he's like, well, now you're just another fucking deaf guy.
What was funny was, I think because obviously The Boys is created, the TV show is showrun by Eric Kripke, who previously did Supernatural with Jensen Ackles. And so obviously it's, they've got a great working relationship from that show. And of course there was always rumours that Jensen Ackles was in the running for all this MCU stuff back in the day. And he never could do it because he was stuck in his Supernatural contract. So it almost feels like, sorry guys, here you go. But sorry Jensen, but here you go. We can make you Captain America in our show, even though you didn't get to be Captain America in the actual show. But the funny thing is, you see him basically decapitating someone with his shield, and I was just like, that just reminds me of the scene in Falcon and the Winter Soldier with Captain America ripoff there. But obviously, I think this is going to be better and funnier. But what surprised me was, initially, he looks like he's actually going to be on the boys' side to fight against Homelander. And that's a big change from the comics, because in the comics, he was just another villain that he took down.
Oh, okay.
So this is a big change. Yeah. So this is, again, they're already doing something new and interesting. One big thing that they do in this trailer that definitely ties into the comics is the introduction of the V pills and injections that can give anyone the power of a suit for a day, which, of course, Butcher happily takes. And then we get a fast action montage of lots of exploding body parts. And, yeah, because that's how... In the comic books, Huey gets injected by Butcher with V, like right at the very start of the comics, and he actually kills someone in his very first time out with the boys by accident. He just punches the guy's head off. But again, you really had to give them powers, because how honestly would they fight them? 2 seasons in a row, they've survived against them, haven't they? But whenever there's been a direct confrontation, this time, and it's gonna be cool, man. I can't wait to see like Butcher going full suit against whoever he's going to clearly massacre horribly in this one. Because what The Boys does really well is it updates the comic books to the modern day, and it works in, and this is what he's always done, like with the Me Too stuff in season 1, it works in the issues of today through the lens of the original comic. And I think the addition of Jensen Ackles is going to be brilliant. And I said, I love that shot where he gets out of his cryopod and then just wakes up, yawns, and then blasts someone through a wall.
Yeah, it's the end, isn't it? So what are his powers? So he's obviously, because like you said, he's the Captain America character, but then he's also got somewhat like, it's like a beam coming out of his belly button. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
like
I honestly, there's so many superheroes in the Boys comics books. When I read it the first time around, I can't remember what he was kind of a minor character. I don't remember him being as major as he's clearly going to be in this show. And like you say, Ackles is so good that I'd love to see him, because Supernatural was pretty good, but it didn't ever come close to pushing the bar on taste and just ick factor like The Boys does. So it's going to be great to actually see him in a role where he can just absolutely do what he wants. So
it's really exciting. Like, I think to just see Anthony Starr's Homelander again, because that man is like born. Do you know where people are like born to play a role? You feel like that's like you can't imagine anybody else playing that role. I feel like this man is just he's made a name for himself, I guess, in more mainstream through the role.
He also made a name for himself for getting in a fight and getting arrested. Was it in Spain in a bar fight a little while ago as well? So it's like, Homelander, in Homelander at home, Homelander in real life. Perhaps he was a bit too much in character.
maybe he was going more for like the full-on method, thinking he could blast people with his. You just see him wandering around staring people out, thinking he's laserizing.
But anyway, season 3 of The Boys drops on Prime Video June 3rd, and there's going to be 8 more episodes of head-exploding glorious carnage. And, one more thing. The fact they are even going to attempt the iconic Hero-gasm storyline from the comics is head-exploding enough. Like Butcher with his vials of V, put it in my veins now.
The Hero-gasm comic, is that what, like, it's official, like, the fans have called it? The Hero-gasm?
There's an issue with the comics, right? I'll tell you the basic bit. So in the comic books, there's a storyline where every year, all the superheroes, go to a Caribbean island to just get off their faces on drugs, alcohol, very, very, very deviant sex, and just get away with it all. And at the time, the media play it off as, they've gone to outer space to fight an intergalactic threat. And they don't. They just go off to an island in the Caribbean to like just do the most depraved shit possible.
Right.
And the boys sneak in and fight a bunch of people there. I think, if I remember rightly, with Love Sausage, the big Russian guy, he was in that in the comics. We need more love.
With Love Sausage.
You got to have some more Love Sausage, man, in it. I mean, how the hell they got away with that shot? Anyway, The Boys, can't wait, and we're not far away, man. It's next month. So in trailers, we got our first look at Disney Plus's She-Hulk show, which I didn't know that trailer was coming anytime soon, so that was a bit of a surprise when it just dropped out of nowhere the other day. And the trailer starts with Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner giving us a talk about how a superhero is a trial by fire. Get it? Because she's a lawyer. And we get a really bizarre, gratuitous butt shot landing of a massive green lady in gym gear. which was a choice, I guess, to start the trailer. And we are quickly introduced to Tatiana Maslany's Jennifer Walters, who is a lawyer and seems to have a great life until she's recruited to become the face of the government's superhero law division. Which sounds very similar to what we were just talking about with The Boys, doesn't it? With their soups division.
Yep. It's almost like everyone just has very similar ideas, and it's like they're copying off each other in some ways, or like just taking elements from one place and putting it somewhere else. And there's nothing really original. I
cannot disagree with a word you said. But yeah, we get a shot of Tim Roth's M.L. Blonsky, last seen cage fighting against Wong in Shang-Chi. And he's clearly going to be one of her early cases, isn't he? We see Bruce in Hulk form, explaining about how rage issues can trigger Jennifer's Hulk powers. But seeing as how he got his from an experiment gone wrong, and I don't really know enough about the comic lore, I wonder why and how she gets her powers. Like, it doesn't make sense to me yet. Obviously, they're going to explain it, but he got his from gamma radiation, right?
Well, within the MCU, you never actually see how he got his powers, I don't think, because it's with the Eric Norton one, The Incredible Hulk. Which was the second
starts
movie.
With him as the Hulk.
It just starts with him as the Hulk. Yeah, you don't get the origin bit. So I don't know whether this one's going to actually show any of that, or if it's just going to all of a sudden be a Lady Hulk. She's going to be a She-Hulk.
Because it's weird, because it cuts to her hulking out on demand with a fairly happy Bruce approving until she rips the door off the chamber. And then we kind of get what the crux of this show seems to be about, that Jennifer/She-Hulk becomes a celebrity herself while still trying to be a regular lawyer, despite being massive and green most of the time. And I guess, I'm guessing, early days of Bruce, her Hulk powers are going to be triggered by certain situations. That's that line where she says, and he says, "Oh, you can be triggered by anger, fear, and rage." And she's like, "That's pretty much baseline for any woman," which is, a fairly apt line. Best line of the trailer for me is when she's told she could be an Avenger, but no, that's for billionaires and narcissists and adult orphans for some reason. Throwing shade at our dearly departed Tony Stark right there, man. Harsh. Too soon. I mean, it's been a couple of years.
Starky. There's a few of them.
Who else is a billionaire, narcissist, and an orphan?
Oh, okay. Fair.
Yeah,
fair.
she was making fun of the
dead
hero who saved the universe.
Separate things, like billionaires, where there's just the one billionaire, I suppose. Narcissists, though pretty much a lot of them are.
Doctor Strange, definitely.
Yeah, and then orphans. Okay, who we got?
Batman.
But he's not in this, Neil. Who we got?
Well, Stark. Stark was orphaned, wasn't he?
Yep.
By Bucky.
Well, he wasn't. He was, but he wasn't. He was like an orphan. Yeah, but can you be an orphan at the age of 20 or however old he was when his parents died?
Yeah, I think you're. I guess so.
You're just technically an orphan when your parents die. So, when your parents die of an old age, are you then an orphan?
Yeah. I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
You then get another montage of what looks like Bruce trying to find different ways to make a Hulk out. This looks funny. The bit where he's got an air horn blast next to her while she's sleeping.
I did not.
She's literally asleep, and you see this air horn coming with his big green hand, and then her eyes just flash open.
Oh, yeah.
That did make me laugh.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I remember.
And we also get our first brief look at Jamelia Jamil's villain, called Titania, who busts through a courtroom wall, who we haven't seen since A Good Place. So good to see her back on our TVs. I don't actually know anything about her character, or I know she's super powered as well, and that she's physically a match for She-Hulk. But I just hope it's done better than Wonder Woman 1984 with her female versus female.
You forgot to mention Frogman.
Frogman? Where was Frogman?
Frogman was in it at before that. So during the fighting scene where she's fighting with the person that busts through the courtroom. It's in that. It's the middle shot between those two cuts.
Wow, I missed that myself, man. All right, David, inform me, enlighten the audience. Who is Frogman?
I was kind of hoping you'd tell me, Neil. I have no idea. I've seen a lot of people. You're way into you comics than I am. I just enjoy the movies for what they are. I don't know little cameos of niche superheroes that the mainstream audiences haven't heard of. But okay, I've heard a theory online that people suspect that it is Daredevil in disguise.
Okay, I know for a fact, or a rumour that I've read online, is that Disney Plus are looking at developing a new Daredevil series with Charlie Cox again. So I don't think he's going to be a green frog. He could turn up just because they're both lawyers, and he's a really, really good lawyer, remember. I
think Daredevil's totally going to be in this. You can't introduce him as a character and then have somebody be another lawyer, and then not have the other character that's a lawyer in some way merge with the show.
Do we think Wilson Fisk is going to turn up in this, even though it looked like he was definitely dead at the end of, spoiler, Hawkeye?
Maybe. I don't know what time this is set as well. That's another thing with this show. There's a lot of people saying that it's unclear what time in the MCU it's set.
Well, it's clearly post Endgame because we've got Smart Hulk
everything's
in it,
post Snap. Yeah, but that's it. So we got Hulk in his Bruce Banner Hulk stage, whatever that is.
Yeah.
If what's the word for that, I don't know. But then you've got at the end of Shang-Chi, you see Bruce as human Bruce, normal Bruce.
Right. Yeah.
And he's got a sling and stuff. So it's what's part of this is this happening? At what time? Is this after or is this before Shang-Chi? Yeah, because Abomination's also in Shang-Chi, so it's all...
Yeah, so it's post Shang-Chi then, isn't it? Definitely, it's got to be, I'd imagine. Okay, so the very last scene of the trailer shows her in full Hulk mode. She's big and green, but she's out on a date. And she literally carries a man off to the bedroom, which is always weird to see, but even weirder to see right before the Disney Plus logo. I mean, you got some giant green sex action right there for Mickey.
That is... I know, she's going to break him.
I mean, there was so much comments about that scene online. So many, man. So, what did you think of the trailer overall then, David? Hello?
Yeah, no, that was just the thinking pause of how I can explain why I didn't like it, but without trying to sound like everybody's, like all the stupid, putrid hate that there was online for it. Because it's not, okay, it's not a part of all of that. It wasn't the
tone.
So do you know how? Yeah. So do you know how Disney Plus is currently? It's basically doing every genre of show that you can get. It's just having its own superhero version of this, and you're casting. So the She-Hulk version is it's your lawyer comedy, isn't it? It's your what show is that? What's a lawyer?
Yeah, essentially this has been likened to a superhero version of Ally McBeal, and do you know what? Tonally, I think that's exactly what the trailer gives us.
So that sort of show isn't one that I'd usually necessarily watch. But you throw a superhero in there, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, you have my attention.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, right? They're expanding into all different genres, right? So what is one of the most popular genres of TV shows? It's courtroom dramas and court and lawyer shows. There's millions of out there. So why not do one that focuses on that with superheroes? It kind of, and I think here's the thing as well, right? Not every superhero show has to appeal to the same demographic. I definitely think this show is much more marketed and will be tonally put out there for women to enjoy rather than teenage Marvel MCU fans.
It's your comedy, isn't it? This is a more of a comedy version. There's nothing in this that seems like it's overly serious. It's obviously taking itself very lightly.
Yeah, it looks light, fun, and cheesy. I mean, some of the dialogue did seem a bit cheesy and on the nose, but I think that's due to the tone of the show. What is the setup of the show? She's a successful, attractive lawyer, unlucky in love, and now she's got superpowers. What I don't get is I'm not quite understanding yet how and why she hulks out. That's not clear to me, because when the Hulk used to hulk out, he would be, rage smash. And in this, she's walking around normally, but in full green thing. Is she like big and green all the time?
She's the same sort of but she's the same as the Hulk is now, isn't she? So she's not.
Yeah.
So you might see like her in full Hulk mode at the very beginning, and then Bruce is like, nah, let me tell. I've been through it before, buddy. Let me show you how you can keep it calm, but also keep that buzz going. You know.
What I will say, man, is I think if you've seen Orphan Black, then you know what an absolutely incredible actress Tatiana Maslany is, who's the lead in this. If you haven't seen it, it's such a good show, man. You know, I'd say pre-Killing Eve, if you wanted a show where you've got an actress who's doing every accent under the sun, and I think she plays so many different multiple versions of herself via clones in Orphan Black that everyone was saying this actress is amazing, put her in everything. And so hopefully this will open her up to a wider audience. I think as well, where people have complained about the tone of the show, look, honestly, not every superhero show has to be epic and serious. I mean, look, I think the best example of that is look at the way Taika Waititi, look how he saved the 4 movies, right? 1 and 2 were that kind of cod Shakespearean seriousness, and it was cod Norse drama. And now they're rollicking action space comedy adventures, and everyone loves them. It can be light, fun, and cheesy, and that's what this show definitely looks like it's going to be. Also, from the weight of comments I've read online, this is what I was kind of hinting at earlier, the reactions seem to be fairly split. I'd say probably generally, like, I've seen more men complain that they think the show looks shit, and more women generally thinking the show looks good. And I think this comes back to the fact that, the show is targeted perhaps towards a more female-centric audience, and that's fine. There's enough shows for blokes out there, you know. And if it gets, I think Marvel are really doing well on representation coming ahead, because up after this, we've got, actually before this, I think, I'm not sure now when it's coming out, we've got Miss Marvel coming out as well, with Iman Vellani playing the first teenage Muslim superhero. And, mate, she should and could be as big as Spider-Man when that comes out. And, again, just keep doing what you're doing, Marvel. I know there's lots of people slagging them, saying, everything's the same, there's no individuality in that. Well, you know what? We're going to talk about a film in an upcoming episode, David. We're going to do a spoiler special on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness quite soon. And I would say that's definitely got the director's directorial imprint on that. So, I think...
100%. I don't know... they're not... Fucking hell, they're not all the same. Like, we were literally just saying the TV shows are like... literally every TV show that we've had so far has broken into its own separate genre.
Yeah. We're not saying that, but that just seems to be the
stock
complaint.
I'd like to see a slasher Marvel. That's what I'd like to see.
Pardon?
A proper horror but like
right.
but I'd like
slasher.
To go a slasher.
I thought you said flasher Marvel, and I was like, that doesn't sound very Marvel. Someone who just keeps exposing themselves as a superpower.
No. A slasher. I like my slashers now, and I'd like that.
Yeah. Well, it could happen, man. It could happen.
Or just a horror Marvel in general, like full on lean into the horror aspect of it, more so than multiverse.
Anyway, She-Hulk is being show-run by Jessica Gao, who is also the head writer, with Kat Coro leading the directing team, and it will premiere on August 17th with 9 episodes to come. Now, onto our TV section. And first up, David, I'm going to take some time here, because I have to talk about the Derry Girls finale. Have you ever watched Derry Girls?
I will let you do this.
Right. Listen intently, and...
You've told me about it, like... I think maybe 3 times on this podcast,
briefly before. I've told you about it briefly. I'm going to get a bit more in depth.
You've been in depth. We've had a whole section on Derry Girls before.
Not compared to this, you haven't. I've told you many times, David, to watch it because it's absolute class. Now, I only discovered the show myself during one of the lockdowns, and binged both seasons in pretty much one sitting. And sadly, just recently, the 3rd and final season of Derry Girls has just concluded after 6 regular episodes and a final hour-long special. Now, look. The show has always brilliantly revelled with its time period of the early to mid-90s and has been so authentically written by its creator Lisa McGee that is one of the main reasons for the show's success. Even if you're not a girl or from Northern Ireland, she captures the essence of growing up in the 90s so well that the show has massive appeal across the board. It's a story of... My spell check's gone wrong. Who is that? Who is that name supposed to be?
Is it an Irish name?
Yeah. Oh, God. Let me just say, David, your friend Pam, we apologise now. I apologise now for all the Irish pronunciations I'm going to get spectacularly wrong while talking about Derry Girls.
She finds it funny. It's cool.
Okay, so this will be the funniest bit of the podcast then. So, Derry Girls, mate, is the story of Erin, Orla, Claire, Michelle and James, the wee English fella. Do you know what? The show pretty much began as a slapstick comedy where each episode the girls, and we can include James in the girls because he basically says I am a Derry Girl himself in one episode. So he's quite happy with being named one of them. But they get themselves into sticky situations that generally spiral out of control every episode till it gets worse and worse and worse. Now, the girls need a great antagonist, and early on, that was a brilliant Siobhan McSweeney as the couldn't give a fuck at all Sister Michael. We're introduced to Erin's parents, Mary and Joe, Orla's mum, Aunt Sarah, and the alarmingly caustic Grandpa Joe, whose sole purpose in the show is just to give shit to his daughter's husband Jerry. Now, despite the comedy taking up around 75% of an episode, there was always a political commentary from McGee in the background about the troubles in Northern Ireland in the form of old news reports detailing the approaching hope of the peace process. The show's had some notable cameos over the years. And do you know what? When I was watching the earlier episodes, do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Father Ted. In that you'd have this small situation and it would just spiral out. Ted. Mate, if you like Father Ted, okay. Well, if you like Father Ted, you'll love Derry Girls because arguably I think it's better. And also, Father Dougal turns up. R.L. O'Hanlon turns up a few times in it as well. Literally, by the end of the show, mate, every Northern Irish celebrity you can think of, pretty much, has been in this show. But it's the writing and performances that make the characters so memorable. You've got the acid-tongued Michelle, swears like a sailor, and is pretty much her only interest in the show is finding boys to ride. That's a term. You've got the permanently hyper-stressed Claire. Right, do I have to explain what ride means?
Yes.
Have sex with.
No. That's what I thought. I just wanted clarification. Continue.
Then you've got Nicola Coughlan, who you know from Bridgerton, but she stars as the hyper-stressed. Yeah, she's.
I know the one.
The one who writes the thing.
Yep.
Ooh, yeah. Spoilers. So. Wow, is it? She plays the permanently stressed Claire. Whenever anything goes wrong, she is always the first person to rat someone out. And they really handled her not being around much in the final episodes. It caused massive scheduling clashes with Bridgerton. They still made it work, so a lot of shows struggle to do that post-COVID, and they really handled it brilliantly in that. You got oh god, I'm going to get this name. Let me build it up for it. Saoirse Monica Jackson as Erin, who she kind of begins the show as almost our default character. It's brilliant, you know. She dreams of being an individual and goes to wear a leather jacket a denim jacket to school, and then her mum won't let her, and then the other girl's wearing one, and she goes, "Well, I'm not going to be an individual by myself," and then they both get changed. And she always dreams of, you know, standing out and being involved in literature, and as we see really funnily later on in the show, they absolutely, you see her like trying to read Shakespeare in a coffee shop, and then it goes down to like a simpler book, and then she's just reading like a teen magazine at the end of the montage, and it's really funny sending up what her character's basically being mocked for. You got James, the wee English fella, who's Michelle's cousin, and he's literally just there as the whiny punching bag. But do you know what? It's to the actor's credit that his character is actually endearing and not annoying, which he so could have easily been. But for me, David, Derry Girls' single best character is Erin's cousin, the now legendary Orla McCall, played by Louisa Harland. Orla is, I think I mentioned this before, is a complete space cadet, and she always says something completely wrong or weird, but at exactly the right time. And the music, David, oh good God, the music in this show is incredible. Not personally for me, but it's got, if you grew up in the 90s, did you grow up in the 90s? Yeah, you grew up in the 90s, didn't you?
I grew up in the 90s, yeah.
Right, so
92,
okay, there you go. So every cheesy chart pop song you can think of from the 90s is in this.
Are we talking steps? We're talking steps? We're talking S Club 7?
It might be a little bit
of Britney Spears?
Definitely Britney Spears in it, man. But we're talking All Saints, Madonna, Take That, Ace of Base, 2 Unlimited, all that kind of stuff. You got great indie music. You got Blur, Space, Supergrass. You got Fatboy Slim in it. In fact, a Fatboy Slim gig is the crux. Going to one of his gigs is the crux of one of the episodes. And of course, you have to have your Irish music. So you got the Cranberries, you got Ash, you got the Undertones, you've got Flogging Molly, and of course, the Dropkick Murphys. And yes, there is a Spotify playlist out there if you guys are interested, and it has over 200 songs on it, and it runs about 12 hours long if you're so inclined. Although I didn't see any U2 on it, which is good, because basically, fuck U2. But also, I didn't see any Therapy on there. And Therapy, literally, are one of the greatest bands from Northern Ireland. And they had so many songs that would have been perfect for the show. I only mentioned that purely because I saw them last month in Nottingham, and they were amazing still, after 30 years. Why
don't you like U2?
I just don't. Bono's a
lot of people
man.
Don't. I don't know.
I think it's more to do with their just I'm Bono. I'm not even don't even know what accent it was. It's just everyone doesn't like Bono because and the guitarist, The Edge. You called yourself The Edge. That's the shittest nickname ever for a guitar player who generally, in my opinion, is not that great a guitarist. Sorry, yeah. Fuck you, U2. And it's not really controversial because a lot. And I also sticking your album on everyone's fucking iPods back in the day. Yeah, arseholes. A lot of them. Anyway, the final episode, man, starts with Orla just getting her moment in the sun. She gets an extended dance sequence to this old 90s dance song, and she literally dances through the town along the walls of Derry, does a little bit of river dance with some kids in between. And honestly, the opening to the show, man, it was like this perfect, joyous introduction to the last ever episode of the show. And what a last episode, man. What I will say is, where the show was, as I've said, very light, almost slapstick comedy most of the time, this finale is a pitch-perfect TV finale. And it has a tricky job of moving deeply into some of the more serious subject matter and issues of the day and walk that line deftly between comedy and drama. Well, the finale of Derry Girls does it. Honestly, mate, I think this might be one of the best TV finales of all time. In that it celebrates the history.
That's a big call, bro. I mean, think about it for a second and think about the TV finales that exist.
I think this is up there with the greatest TV finales of all time. Right, and I'll tell you why. It celebrates the show's history, it stays true to the characters, but most importantly, the show educates people on the peace process and the Good Friday Agreement. And if you saw the outpouring of comments online after the episode aired the other week, so many people said, do you know what, Jesus, we learned more about the peace process and the issues from Northern Ireland from Derry Girls than we ever learned over here in school in the UK. Which, at the same time, is a massive recommendation of the show and a scathing critique of the UK school systems. So
no,
finally,
I don't think I was ever actually taught it in school.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And
which
there
is
you go,
bonkers,
mate.
really.
And I think this is what you learn as you get older, that when you're younger at school and you're learning history, you're getting taught your country's history. You're not actually learning about all the bad shit your country did in the rest of the world. And that's still true to this day. I think it's only when you kind of get off to college or uni and you expand your circle of friends and, education that you start realising, oh, wait, actually, no. We all, a lot of countries done lots of dodgy shit in the recent history, and it kind of gets glossed over. And the fact that ostensibly a half an hour comedy, half an hour slapstick comedy managed to do this in its final episode is just, The show means so much to so many people, man, and it's so well done. Like I say, I couldn't believe how good it was. It really. And also, David, the good news is there's only 19 episodes for you to watch.
Well, total?
In total, yeah, because it was a Channel 4 show. There were 6 episodes a season, and then in the last series, there's one final hour-long episode. And that's it. They've stopped it after 3 seasons. Because, perfection doesn't need any more. Honestly, mate, this will be... I don't think it'll be my show of the year, but it will be up there on my top 10 list for certain.
Okay.
So first up, David, there was a show that you watched a trailer for, and you was like, I am not watching that. And that show is called 10%.
Well, hang on. Let me rewind a
Quantify
second. So you binged 3 shows in a weekend?
No, I watched the whole series in one night, in one sitting.
And we're like, there you go. And was just like, David, you need to watch all 3 of these shows. And at which point, there's ain't got the time you have, Neil, to watch these shows. No. And so I watched 2 of these shows and a few episodes of each, and then I was just like, okay, let's start this 10%. I watched the trailer for it, and I was just like, I'm not even going to waste my time. I'm not going to. I could just looking at it, I was like, I'm not going to enjoy this. This isn't my kind of TV show. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch the first episode of one of the other shows. Continue with one of the other shows instead. So let's not be too downhearted in saying
no. Oh. What was it about the trailer that made you not want to watch it? Was it not funny?
The premise of the show, yeah.
What from the trailer? What did you think the premise of the show is?
It's an agency, wasn't it, that was booking in talent for something. I don't know. I watched the trailer a week ago. I can't really remember it that much. But that's what I got, and it was going to have, and you could just tell it was going to have a bunch of cameos from different actresses and actors over. Every episode, there's going to be a new 3 or 4 different actors trying to get roles or whatever, and I was just like, nah. I'm going to go back to Shining Girls.
Now, having not seen the original, luckily I was not armed with these preconceptions going in. But first, what is 10% about? Well, 10%, and I admit with you here, right, mate, it is a bad title. It's like, what does 10% even mean? Obviously, I'm guessing that's the amount the agents take of the fee, but as that's not really a plot point that's ever addressed, they could have come up with a better title, I think,
Mm-hmm.
So, 10% is about a London talent agency for TV, movie and theatre actors called Nightingale Hart. It's run by the father and son team, Jonathan, played by Jack Davenport, and Richard, played by the legendary Jim Broadbent. And I suppose the show's unique selling point, which you kind of touched on, is that each episode's main plotline usually revolves around a big-name guest actor playing a version of themselves and having issues with one of the agents. So, for example, the first episode sets up the hierarchy of the office. You got Lydia Leonard's character, Rebecca, abusing her assistant to the point she just upright and quits straight away, right at the same time as newcomer Hiftu Qasim's character, Misha, turns up looking for work. There's a freshly available assistant position. So, Misha begins a new job, but she's got a mysterious background, David, and there's definitely a link to Jack Davenport's Jonathan, which is going to be explored as the show develops. Did you get that from the trailer?
I did not get any of that from the trailer at all.
You got Maggie Steed starring as Stella Hart. She's like the older agent who's resistant to change, and you would like her, David, because she brings her small dog Matthias everywhere with her, even into the meetings. And Matthias humps some legs. He humps some legs. You've got Prasanna Puran Raja as Dan, a bumbling agent who handles guest star Kelly MacDonald very, very badly in the first episode, and Fola Evans Akingbola as Zoe, who's a receptionist who also wants to be an aspiring actress. Rounding off the office, though, are my 2 favourite characters, Rebecca Humphries Julia, who's Jonathan's long-smitten assistant. Honestly, mate, she's so passive-aggressive. I don't think in the first couple of episodes she says more than anything other than yes. But the way she says yes, it's like someone else saying the word motherfucker. Right? She just uses yes like a... Honestly, mate, she's like, yes, yes, yes. She's like a small dog barking at you. She's that good. And then finally, you've got Harry Trevelyan as Ollie, who's Dan's assistant. And he's really funny. He comes up with some great one-liners, and he's good. He becomes good friends with Misha. So as I said, each episode has guest stars. You got Helena Bonham Carter, Dominic West. You got Bridgerton's Phoebe Denver in there as well, David. But probably the best performance in the show for me comes from Tim McEnany as Simon Gould, who's an old friend of Broadbent's character, who, despite being a drunk and blowing every major opportunity he's ever had, he still manages to get chances because of his friendship with Broadbent. He has such a great character arc throughout the show. And for me, his storyline is the emotional heart of the show. You get a lot of, backstabbing and people being arseholes with the agents. And you've just got this older drunk guy who's just like, I don't know, whenever people are talking bullshit, he's able to cut through it all with like one really sort of sadly written line. Later in the series, you get a couple of Americans joining the team in a kind of corporate synergy kind of thing. And they're played wonderfully by, and honestly, this is the actress's real name, Chelsea Crisp. That's the actress's name. And the character she plays, and again, you couldn't make this up, it's called Kirsten First. I mean, those two names literally sound like something out of Toast of London, don't they?
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I get sometimes. This almost feels like a more serious, streamlined, and not as bizarre version of Toast of London in regards to like the agency stuff. But you know what? Again, on paper, you would look at this and think, oh, right, yeah, the Americans come in and they, her storyline is really good. It really surprised me where it goes. She could have just been a simple antagonist to the main agency and our main characters. But where her story goes is really, really well written, and I was very surprised. It's a great performance. And I'm not just saying that because she likes my review of the show.
You're totally saying that. That's why. It all comes to light now.
No,
why
man.
You
Honestly,
talk about this. They liked a tweet of yours, didn't they?
And a production company, but that's besides the point. So, yes, another show for me to recommend because I think the performances are pitch perfect, the writing's sharp, and despite the cutthroat nature of being an agent, the show has quite a heart at its centre that gets slowly peeled like an onion as the show progresses. All 8 episodes are now on Prime Video right now. Are you going to watch it now, David?
No.
Maybe.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
There
is a lot of stuff out
there. There was nothing you said there that made me think, oh, you know what, maybe, no, nothing. Not a single word. David, you did not sell it very well, Neil.
I think that says more about you than it does about my selling skills, my friend. One show that I don't think either of us will be able to sell to anyone, and we're just burying the lead with this, is the Pentavarate. Yes. New to Netflix. This is Mike Myers' new comedy show.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. I mean, it is. That is what it's meant to be.
Is it a comedy?
Some people would find it funny, I'm assuming.
I mean, I might have 25 years ago when Austin Powers originally came out, and this type of comedy was,
I never liked Austin Powers.
You're a heathen.
I've never been a fan of Michael Myers.
I will double down, mate. Well, again, he's got a very particular brand of comedy, right? So look, for most people, Myers is known for Wayne's World. And I'm sorry, but the first 2 Wayne's World films, well, the only 2 Wayne's World films, are comedy classics. And this is Mike Myers' new show. As the last Halloween film always taught us, David, evil does not die. And that explains the existence of this show. So briefly, the Pentavarate is about a secret society of good guys, their words not mine, who influence world events throughout the centuries, and naturally, of course, Myers wants to play most of the roles himself, which is nice, I guess.
He plays literally about 70% of the characters. So
many that I was like, if I don't recognise who the actor is, it's probably Mike Myers.
Yeah.
And in the first episode, we meet Keegan-Michael Key's Dr. Hobart Clark, and he's kidnapped to be a new member of the Pentavarate against his will, with his death being faked. And remember, these are the good guys, right? Myers also plays veteran Canadian newsman Ken Scarborough, who is fired and is convinced that investigating the Pentavarate story and exposing them will save his job. I do disagree with you with Austin Powers. I think the first Austin Powers film, because it wasn't a big hit when it first came out.
Dude, I never liked Wayne's World. I'm going to straight up say it. It's Wayne's World's one of those films that you're like, you like everyone quotes it and that you're supposed to like it because everybody else
loves
rack.
It. A gum rack, David. I don't even own many guns.
I don't, yeah. It's not my type of comedy. I didn't really enjoy it.
I mean, I'm not saying you're this close to being fired from the podcast, David, or fired from a cannon into the sun.
It's these kind of, Neil, it's these kind of reactions. It's why people like myself are too afraid to speak out about not liking a film because the popular opinion is that they're liked. And it's people like you that push us down.
Want to fire you into the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Wayne's World 1, classic. Wayne's World 2, pretty much just as good. Austin Powers 1, now, because I remember seeing it when it came out, and it was very underrated at the time. It didn't do very well, which was surprising when the sequel came out. And the sequel was massive, but the sequel wasn't as good as the first one. And the third one was pretty fucking terrible, bar some funny cameos at the start. But the reason for talking so much about Austin Powers and Mike Myers' old work is because the single biggest problem is Myers' comedy has not moved on or developed in any way since the days of Austin Powers. And although technically the jokes are different, they're not. The way he takes aim at cults in the media, it's the exact same style of jokes, from a Sasquatch taking a shit on the floor to a European character making every word sound like a swear word. This show is definitely a relic of an age of bygone comedy.
Yeah. To be fair, the one time I laughed in the first episode was the bit where the with the European character making it sound like a swear word. It was the you've got to the initiation trial was you got to focus, you got to fuck us, you got to fuck us all in the That was the only bit that just made me chuckle a little bit, where he thought they were saying you got to fuck us.
But the thing is, arguably he did, because we wasted how much time watching his show. How many did you watch? Just the one?
Yeah,
was that enough?
Yeah, that was enough for me. I watched it. You know what? I was really fucking annoyed at you, actually, because I watched that episode, and then I messaged you, and I was just like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" And then you went, "Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it?" And I was like, "Why the fuck did you make me watch it then?"
Share my pain.
And your response
right here
was,
now, David.
"Because I watched it." And you have to.
Yeah, and I watched all 6 episodes, David. And do you know what? Do you know what happened late? Right, so later on in the show, I actually got to the end of it, and I honestly couldn't tell you what happened. Such was my lack of interest as it was going on. I mean, there's a sphincter curlingly bad.
I don't know why you continued.
I had it on in the background. I wasn't really focused on it. I was like, okay, well, will it get better? Because there was a couple of bits. There was one bit in it that I found very funny, and I did like, which I will tell you at the end. Because we're not here to shit on shows all the way through, but largely on this one. Well, mate, at one point there's a cameo by Shrek in it, literally, a cameo, a live action cameo by Shrek, and you're just like, oh no, that's. And you could see how they thought that would be good and funny. The last thing anyone wants is a Myers verse. I'm just saying. I would rather have a Michael Myers verse with loads of different Halloween people in it than whatever this was. The only flashes of Myers' once comic genius is, and I don't think you got this on the first one, it starts off with the voiceover by Jeremy Irons explaining what the show is?
Yeah.
Did you get that? Right. Did you remember? It was fairly straight ahead, wasn't it, in the first episode? He's the Pentavarate is, blah, 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 blah. Right?
Mm.
From the second episode on, he keeps breaking the fourth wall in it. So, when I think it's from the second episode where he's like, don't you dare skip the titles. This might be a different show. This could be the new episode of Stranger Things. And it flashes up the Stranger Things logo. And I was like, that's really clever. That's properly funny. And it makes you not skip the title sequence on the show because they were trying to do something funny and different every time. So I was like, okay, that is all. And then every episode, Irons is just doing completely different stuff on the start of the credits. He's like, don't you dare skip that. I am Jeremy Irons. You have paid to hear my voice. It's like, okay, that's good. So all 6 episodes, it really felt like so many more hours than that. Please, even if you love Wayne's World, don't subject yourself to this. And I'm fairly certain that right now, this show will be classed as a hate crime against all Canadians. And last up today is Tokyo Vice, airing on HBO Max in the States since April. We finally got it over here in the UK. But unfortunately, it's on Starplays, which means we have to pay even more for it. And it's a crime drama created by J.T. Rogers, based on the 2009 book of the same name by Jake Edelstein, starring Ansel Elgort and Ken Watanabe in the lead roles. So, the simple setup of the show is that in 1999, an American journalist named Jake Edelstein moves to Tokyo to pass an exam to get a job with Micho Shimbun, which is Tokyo's biggest newspaper and has never employed a foreign journalist before. Jake passes the test and gets assigned to the lowest role at the paper, which is reporting on the crime beat. But after viewing a few unsavoury incidences, he slowly begins to investigate the Yakuza. Indeed, and annoyingly, this is one of my pet peeves of a lot of shows now, David, is the very start of the first episode shows Jake and Hiroto, his detective friend, about to try and record some Yakuza in a meeting when it's clear things are going to go wrong. And just as things are about to go wrong, we jump back in time to Jake sitting his exams to get a job at the newspaper. And after the first 2 episodes that I have seen, we still have not swung back to that timeline yet. So I'm guessing that's where the season finale is going to go to. It's just I don't get, I know it's all the rage these days to mess with the chronology of shows, the chronology of shows even, just to supposedly create excitement at the start of the show. But honestly, telling this story in an old-fashioned linear way, it would have been fine too. Also, the first episode of the show was directed by legendary director of Heat, Michael Mann, who also directed a little show back in the day, David, called Miami Vice. And do you know what? For me, it's almost like an exec sitting somewhere was like, hey, the show's called Tokyo Vice. Let's get the guy who did Miami Vice, despite them having absolutely nothing in common. But what I like about this show, right, other than Jake listening to Pearl Jam's first album in his tiny box room, the show was actually filmed in Tokyo. And bar Rachel Keller and Ella Rumpf, two foreign hostess girls in the show, and Elgott himself, the whole cast is Japanese, even including the great Rinko Kikuchi as Jake's direct supervisor at the paper. Now, I love the slow burn of this series so far, as you can see that despite him speaking very good Japanese, he bumps up a lot of cultural issues, and then once he initially encounters Rachel Keller's Samantha character, she's the only other American he knows in the vicinity of where he is, you establish a lot about Japanese culture and how the whole hostess bar culture works in Japan. And it's also got that kind of classic neo-noir detective / reporter story that takes time with a setting and a sense of pace over dialogue. And although it should be obvious when you have the name of a city in the show's title, you really should film there, unlike the recent Bulgarian Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix. As it is, you get to see this version of Tokyo on screen and this brief glimpse into its seedy underbelly that really pulls you into the show. And I really can't wait to see the rest of it. So, the first 2 episodes of Tokyo Vice recently dropped on Stars Play, and a new episode drops once a week till all 8 episodes have aired. And also, it's going to be available on the BBC later in the year. So, have I sold you on Tokyo Vice, David?
Not really either. You've not been doing a good job, Neil. It's not, yeah. Right,
so from what I've talked about today, we all agree that Pentavarate was absolute donkey shit, and is a crime against all Canadians everywhere. You don't think 10%'s your type of show. I haven't sold you on Tokyo Vice. So, David, that means my pick of the week and the show you're going to watch at some point is going to be Derry Girls.
No. Derry Girls. Okay, you know what? I'll give Derry Girls a go. Derry Girls seems for me like way more up my street.
It's a cultural phenomenon, David.
Because you know what? I could do.
I'm pretty sure Pam would tell you to watch it. If you're listening, Pam, tell David to watch it. Right, well, that's all the time we got for today. But coming up soon, I think our next episode is going to be our Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness spoiler special. See you next time. You're supposed to say bye.
Oh, my man, bye-bye. Bye.